The avoidant person operates from psychological framework where being pursued validates their sense of control and emotional superiority while being the pursuer threatens their defensive identity. Their entire relational pattern depends on maintaining distance while others bridge the gap, preserving their position of power through strategic withdrawal. However, specific behavioral shifts can completely reverse this dynamic, transforming the avoidant person from the pursued into the desperate pursuer. These changes operate on deep psychological principles that trigger responses they cannot consciously control or suppress, forcing them to experience the vulnerability and uncertainty they typically inspire in others. Stop all contact and become genuinely unavailable. The transformation begins with complete cessation of all contact attempts, emotional investment, and availability that characterize previous interaction patterns. This withdrawal must stem from genuine shift in priorities rather than strategic manipulation, as the avoidant person's radar for games remains highly sensitive. When they encounter authentic unavailability rooted in someone's full and satisfying life, their entire psychological framework shifts from comfort to concern about permanent loss. This unavailability triggers their competitive instincts and fear of abandonment they typically project onto others. They begin experiencing the anxiety they usually inspire in partners, wondering whether they still matter to someone whose world has expanded beyond them. The shift from being someone's priority to being optional in someone's busy life creates unfamiliar urgency and desire to reclaim their former position of importance. Their usual strategy of withdrawal no longer provides control when there is no one left attempting to close the gap they create. Demonstrate visible happiness and thriving without them. The avoidant person pursues desperately when confronted with evidence that someone is radiating genuine joy, success, and fulfillment in their absence. This visible flourishing contradicts their unconscious belief that they are essential to others' happiness and challenges their sense of superiority. When someone not only survives without them but dramatically improves, it forces recognition that their presence was limiting rather than enhancing, that their departure created opportunity rather than devastation. They find themselves drawn to the energy and vitality radiating from someone who embodies the aliveness they cannot generate within themselves. The stark contrast between their internal emptiness and their former partner's obvious happiness creates magnetic pull rooted in both desire and competitive instinct. They begin pursuing not just to reclaim lost connection but to access the happiness and completeness they witness in someone who has genuinely moved forward without looking back. Establish unshakable boundaries and self-respect. The avoidant person chases intensely when they encounter someone who demonstrates unwavering self-respect and refuses to tolerate breadcrumbs, mixed signals, or emotional unavailability regardless of attachment explanations or promises of eventual change. This firm boundary around acceptable treatment triggers respect that transforms into attraction as they unconsciously seek partners who possess the self-worth and standards they lack within themselves. When someone maintains their dignity and walks away from poor treatment rather than endlessly accommodating limitations, it communicates value the avoidant person suddenly recognizes. They begin pursuing someone who refused to chase them, someone who demonstrated through action that their presence was desired but not desperately needed. This reversal forces them into unfamiliar position of proving their worth, rather than having it assumed. Display complete emotional indifference to their games. The avoidant person pursues frantically when confronted with genuine emotional indifference from someone who once cared deeply. This indifference cannot be performed, as their sensitivity to emotional games remains acute. When they encounter authentic detachment where their typical strategies of withdrawal and distance no longer produce any emotional reaction, they lose their primary tool for maintaining psychological control.